A new scientific study suggests that young students pose very little risk of spreading COVID-19. But who needs science when you have spoiled teachers staging die-ins and forcing schools closed with mass absences? Not much of an endorsement for public schools when you can't tell the kids from the adults. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classes and college campuses around the world. Today, we start with exactly this. A new study out of Europe suggesting that, there's very little chance that kids are going to spread the virus, even if they have it. Now, again, what always amazes me about these things is that gap between what medical science says and how much political capital can be made of these things. And so I would imagine most Americans have not heard of this study, just like American moms and dads are not allowed to hear from all those doctors who got on and did a video talking about why this is overblown. Pure people. And unlike Dr. Fauci, these were working professional doctors who had seen actual cases of COVID over the last 6 months, as opposed to Fauci, who hasn't actually dealt with a real patient in 20 years. So you see the game. They're going to stop you from seeing this stuff. That's why we're here at the Dr. Duke Show, though.
This is true. We do all the science here at the Dr. Duke Show.
We're very science-y here.
Science. So it's a forthcoming Public Health England study, and they talked in this study stressing the importance and the necessity of reopening the schools. They're saying it was imperative. Oh, imperative. That's like an English term we used to teach our kids about, something being imperative. So the new study has been done in UK schools, and it confirms there's very little evidence that the virus, COVID-19, is transmitted in schools. Let's stop and... Okay, so now the politics gets involved, as we know. It's been going
Twitter
this entire
and Facebook
time.
Ban the idea.
Everything has been going, but at least in the UK, Boris Johnson has declared that resuming classes is a national priority.
Yep.
And if you want to talk about Boris Johnson, you say Trump, UK version.
Bojo with better hair.
Bojo with better hair. Yes,
Not
and
much.
he's actually planning an advertising blitz to urge anxious parents, because so many parents out there are anxious, that they should be sending their kids back to school. And actually, it's kind of on the back of the education secretary over there saying that if he doesn't get all these kids back in school, it's kind of like his neck.
Well, it's beyond that. I mean, it's imperative for a lot of reasons. What no one wants to talk about, like that group of American doctors were trying to talk about before they were blacklisted, is all of the other ways this is harming people. I mean, young kids are reacting very badly to this. The social isolationism, the apocalyptic nature of what they see on TV every day, the overstated claims of mortality that they hear all the time, the Orwellian visions of themselves in masks and shields and teachers wearing rubber gloves and lab coats, as we showed on some of the videos we've done over the last few weeks. It really does have a terrible toll, to say nothing of the fact that you have families out of work not able to make ends meet. You have all of the economic problems that are also being borne by families having to deal with this, again, overinflated pandemic. It's time to you've got to get the kids back. We have well since passed that turning point where the consequences of people getting sick has been overridden by the sociological and psychological damage that's being done on a daily basis.
And the fact that when this finally someday ends, we're going to come back and look at how many suicides, how much self-harm, and everything else that has been done to our children. The child abuse,
the kids.
Yeah, the child abuse factor, right, with just that is...
It's huge,
but
the toll on people killing themselves, adults, we have some sympathy left, not so much on the left, but we have some sympathy left for young people, but not really so much for middle-aged people and elderly people. And what this has done to wreak havoc among those types of people as well is really, really damaging. And we can't even talk about this as a problem. And to allow people like Fauci to be the only real expert here, or Bricks for that matter, or to only look at what the World Health Organization says is odd when you think about one of the hallmarks of real good science, especially when you're dealing with new scientific issues like a new virus, is competing arguments is what gets us to scientific conclusions that matter, right? If you're just going to sit there and say, all right, we've got Fauci and Twitter and Facebook support Fauci, and Trump support Fauci, so he's the guy we're going to listen to. When there are contradicting pieces of evidence coming out from these other sources, including scientific sources like the scientific study done in England or doctors in this country who actually treat these patients, we were going to block that out. In other words, you can't get to real science if you're not letting people scientifically investigate alternative possibilities. This is why no one believes global warming except liberal lefty idiots. It's because the government will not fund scientific experiments into why it may be not true. You're not allowed to research it now. Look at what Michael Mann does to anybody who challenges his ridiculous claims. He sues him, right? So what you're doing is not being scientific by shutting off avenues of investigation that might challenge the pet theory. That's not science. It's propaganda. And the scientific community is being used in this. The major tech companies are shutting down dissent, not in the name of science, but to thwart science. Whether they're smart enough to realize that or not is yet to be seen.
Well, Professor Russell Viner, who's the president of Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health, said that keeping schools shut would take a further toll on both young people's academic attainment and mental health. And he said that this study is some of the largest data you will find on schools anywhere. Britain has done very well in terms of thinking of collecting data in schools. And unlike what's happening in the United States, the Labor Party over there, the unions, and the Children's Commissioner have all voiced support for the principle of schools opening again in September.
Yeah. So the moderate to mid-left in England is actually against what the American teachers unions and whiny American high school and middle school teachers are doing. It really is a staggering, stupid thing that we've got going on here. But you'll never know that because that information won't reach the hands of the average American mom and dad because social media and the tech giants, they recognize one thing and one thing only, that keeping the kids out of school makes it much more likely that Donald Trump loses in November because then you can blame him for why the kids are. Now, again, Trump wants the kids back in school. Betsy DeVos wants the kids back in school. Moms and dads in this country want the kids back in the school.
Pediatricians do.
Pediatricians and doctors and psychologists want the kids back in the school. Who doesn't want the kids back? Left-wing teachers and Democrat politicians. So I'm hoping, Mom and Dad, that you realize that when it comes to vote on this issue in the fall, they can blame Trump all they want for COVID, but your kids could be in school now and they could have been in school right on time. They don't have to miss any more school. They're missing it because Democrats are holding your kids hostage, and as usual, Democrat teachers are holding your kids' education hostile to their own social justice parameters. In the words of Dr. Phil, how's that working for you, Mom?
Do you want what's best for your children? Do you live in California? Well,
contradiction in terms right there.
You're a screwdo, as they say. Governor Gavin Newsom has now threatened stiff penalties to parents who decide to hire tutors for their kids. So, Mom and Dad, you want to give your kid an actual education because school is, not actually happening or they're virtual schooling, and you decide, hey, let's get together with a couple families down the block and we're going to hire some tutors. Look out, the government's coming for you. You're going to possibly face some stiff penalties, they say, or fines. It was Law AB 5, for the record, that put this into effect on January 1st of 2020. It actually happened right before the Rona came, and it states that parents who hire tutors to work at home would have to pay them as employees, not independent contractors. So this goes more than just basically you hiring tutors because it hires gig workers. That's what they're calling the bill, the gig worker bill. It affects like Uber drivers or Lyft drivers or the DoorDash if you've gotten some food from DoorDash. But it affects tutors. And right now, especially in the state of California, where education is horrific to begin with, the fact that you want to actually get your kids' education now, you could have to pay the price for it.
Yeah, this law classifies gig workers, as you said, as employees. It means these workers will be entitled to a minimum wage, expense reimbursements, employee benefits, rest breaks, and other benefits afforded to employees under California state law. So you invite somebody over for 90 minutes to tutor your kid once a week in math. You're going to have to pay his transport there and back. You're going to have to give him a coffee break. You're going to have to give him bathroom breaks. You're going to have to pay benefits to him, right? So, hey, do you have a dental plan ready for your tutor? And again, it may not have been this ridiculous California bill. It may not have initially been about targeting tutors in particular. But one of the healthy benefits of this gig law for California Democrats is they can expand it to include tutors as well.
Well, if you just want to put my information down below there, I'm available. I won't even take a coffee break. I'll make sure to drink my coffee before or after the tutoring session. So,
but you don't really have a say in it. I don't think you have the right to, in California, you don't have, this is what's so Orwellian about what California is doing. You don't have the right to say, hey, screw that. Now, again, you could say to mom and dad, hey, mom and dad, I'm not going to report you. And mom and dad may trust you, but you both realize that you're breaking the law, right?
Hello, I'm a rebel without a cause. Where have you been?
Yep.
There's me. So these stiff penalties can be put onto any business or individual who violates the law. So yes, they can come into your house and catch you. A coalition of parents, teachers, and education advocates, they're attempting to get Newsom to suspend the law for obvious reason. The chairman of the Reform California, Carl DeMaio, said parents are already struggling with the state's arbitrary decision to close the schools, and now Governor Newsom is threatening them with penalties if they opt to hire tutors to help their children during this difficult time. Governor Newsom needs to send a clear message to parents that hiring tutors is permitted by immediately suspending AB 5 as it relates to at-home tutors and teachers.
So de Blasio and Cuomo on the East Coast, Gav's Newsom on the West Coast, and they call everything in between flyover country? I mean, I would think that with the way reality goes, zipping over the heads of these morons, you would think that flyover country would be on the coast, the liberal progressive coast, but it's not. And we applaud Carl DeMaio for what he's doing here, and we hope they get it turned back, but this is what happens when you have basically one-party Democrat rule in the state of California. There's no stupid thing they can't pass without even thinking about it. No one reads these things anymore. If it's put forth by Democrat legislators at every single stop of California, it's rubber stamped.
Since we're on the topic of rubber stamping, a different kind of rubber topic will be discussed now. We have breaking news out of the University of Georgia. They have pulled their mask when having sex protocols. That's right, their mask, that you're supposed to wear a mask when having sex protocols.
Wait a minute.
They've pulled it due to severe mocking and pure dumbassery.
You mean I can't, my wife and I can't play the Zorro game?
Well,
fencing.
I don't want to know. The health center at UGA had originally put out COVID-19 considerations, and it included how you should wear a mask while having sex. Here are the recommendations. You are your safest sex partner. Practice solo sex or limit the number of sexual partners you have.
I thought you were going to give me examples of masks that you could wear.
I'll let you go ahead and just develop those on your own. You could probably make a buck or two. Also, wash your hands and objects with warm water for 20 seconds.
Is this before or after?
Before and after
you
sexual
engage in
activity.
solo sex.
You didn't.
I know. I'm
for before and after.
You
20
had to
seconds.
know.
20 seconds is longer than, someone sitting over to my right may need.
It's
for pretty much anything. Exactly. The virus has been found in the semen and feces of people with COVID-19. Consider wearing a face mask during sex. Heavy breathing and panting can further spread the virus, and wearing a mask can reduce the risk. But isn't this, especially for, college-age guys, a lot to be asking of them? They have to wear a condom and a mask at the same time? Are they going to get them confused is what I'm wondering. What goes where?
Yeah, I don't know. And all I know about this is that the hysterical nature of this is they put this guide out. They literally put this guide out. And they were so mocked.
Oh, yeah, they were, because there's still one more that is even the best one. Maybe it's the mask.
I'm being premature again,
you
aren't
are being
premature.
Last more than 20. Okay. Avoid kissing and be creative with sexual positions that reduce close face-to-face contact.
That's, in the words of Creed Bratton, that's the union of the monkey. And the thing is that gets me about the story is that University of Georgia really believed this is going to help kids. Then they were mocked on internet, and they took it down. Since you mocked us, we're going to take. If it's so important, University of Georgia, why does a little mockery make you take it down? It just shows you how image conscious these universities. This is virtue signaling. If this was important information, Georgia wouldn't have taken it down because people like you and I mocked it. It's virtue signaling, and it was having the opposite effect.
And it went limp prematurely.
Yeah, I mean, there's no purple pill in the world going to revive that particular legislation.
It's time for some real education. The Book of Kells, also known as the Book of Columba, is an illuminated manuscript gospel book in Latin containing the 4 Gospels of the New Testament. It was created in a Columban monastery in Britain in about 800 AD. It's a masterwork of Western calligraphy and represents the pinnacle of manuscript. It's also widely regarded as one of Ireland's finest national treasures. The manuscript takes its name from the Abbey of Kells, which was its home for centuries. Today, it is actually housed in the Trinity College Library in Dublin, which usually has it on display at any given time. 2 of the 4 current volumes, and one shows a major illustration, and the other shows a typical text page.
And a great big shout out to our friend in Ireland, Mairead McGuinness, who has recommended this book to us. Now, the Book of Kells we did know of. It's a beautiful. In fact, it was on our list for a little bit later, but we're going to move it up in honor of Mairead. It is a very important piece of literature, and it's one of those works of literature that has a big cultural significance beyond its own beautiful illuminated manuscripts, right? Of course, you've seen illuminated manuscripts of the Gospels, beautiful colors, beautiful calligraphy, treasured works of art in their own right. But this one actually symbolizes something else. It symbolizes the old trope of how the Irish saved civilization. It's a great book to that effect that I read a few years ago. It's a short little book, but it gives a compelling argument about if it weren't for those monks, those Irish Christian Catholic monks working in places like Iona and Columba, these monasteries all across the Isles there. If it weren't for them, when the Vikings were raiding, this is it dates from about 800 AD. This is on the continent. This is the time of Charlemagne, right? Charlemagne becomes the king, the Holy Roman Emperor. But in these monasteries on the outskirts of Europe, these were prime pickings for the Vikings, right? For marauders from all kinds of places. And so the books, it was these Irish monks copying these beautiful books, these editions of the Bible, but also many of the classic texts of the ancient world that were in these libraries. If it weren't for them copying them out, we might have lost them. I mean, so that it really is not an overstatement to say that the Irish, to some extent, really did save major aspects of Western culture. And if you ever want to see a great movie that deals with this, check out Sean Connery in The Name of the Rose, the Umberto Eco classic. The book is better than the movie, but if you get a chance to read the book, do that. Now go to the images themselves. Get a sense there of just how gorgeous they are, right? The king with the book right there. The illustrations and ornamentation of the Book of Kells surpass that of other insular gospel books in extravagance and complexity from this period. The decoration combines traditional Christian iconography with the ornate swirling motifs typical of insular art. Figures of human beings, animals, mythical beasts, the elaborate geometrical patterns like you see there, together with Celtic knots and interlacing patterns in vibrant colors, enliven the manuscript's pages. Many of these minor decorative elements are imbued with absolute Christian symbolism, and including these 4. This is one of my favorite things in the entire Book of Kells. It is the 4 evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John themselves, but figured as avatars. Right? They're avatars that you see carved in the medieval cathedrals. You see them in books like this. Each gospel writer was represented as a particular thing. So the man is always Matthew. The lion is Mark, the ox is Luke, and the eagle is John. And there are very good reasons for this. Matthew is seen as a man because of the idea that it emphasizes that gospel, the humanity of Christ. Mark is a lion, the voice crying out in the wilderness. Luke is the ox, emphasizing the sacrificial nature of that gospel. And John is the eagle, which is the idea of the spiritual emphasis. The Gospel of John is the one that emphasizes Christ as God more than man, and the eagle was the symbol of that. So going to the next image, you see here what is probably the very earliest image of the mother of God and Christ child in the lap of his mother, anywhere in Western culture that we have surviving. And it comes from the Book of Kells. Figuratively, the book is 13 inches wide and 10 inches high. So it's really pretty tiny. Imagine having to do that level of manuscript illumination on a work that was relatively tiny. And they really didn't have glasses back then like we know them today. So that's a lot of Irish monks working on a lot of beautiful projects. Thanks again, Mairead.
All right, as always, you can follow us on Facebook and Parler. And if you have any questions for us, please feel free to visit freedomproject.com/askduke and send us those questions. Now we're going to wrap things up with our fun fact of the day. In the early 1900s, the freshman men of the University of Georgia would take their pants off and march through the streets in Athens. They would be greeted by the sophomore men, and then fistfights would ensue. They called it the Shirt Tail Parade. Now, this is still happening, but today they're wearing masks.
Wearing masks and evidently washing their hands in hot water after their fisticuffs. Although the idea of fighting a fist fight with no pants on, it does make you cringe a little bit, doesn't it? And that's going to do it for the Dr. Duke Show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, sláinte, my friends.